The Sweet Sound of Success show is brought to you by the Mentor Studio. The Mentor Studio is an exclusive mentoring and training program for social influencers, business owners, entrepreneurs, coaches, and startups, bringing personal development to the underserved around the world. And brought to you by Success Strategists. Simple strategies that work to develop your business with flow and ease using proven strategies and the right tactics. This is the Sweet Sound of Success with Sue Wilhite, Success Attraction Expert. Melissa Fairchild's first career was as a therapist with the Veterans Administration. And for more than 30 years, she has helped thousands who have struggled with stress and overwhelm. She understands trauma healing both professionally and personally, as we will hear. And today, she is a high performance leadership coach who works with high achievers. Welcome, Melissa Fairchild.
Hi, Sue. How are you today?
It is awesome. Absolutely awesome. I can't wait to share your hero's journey with my audience. But before we do that, I'm going to let my audience know what they're up for here. The subtitle or title, depending on how you've encountered it, of this show is The Hero's Journey for the Entrepreneur's Soul. And it has to do with Joseph Campbell's hero's journey cycle. And it's a cycle, it's actually a bit of a spiral. And the way that he blocked it out, there are 16 pieces to it. And we're not going to do the 16. That would take way too long. And I've cherry picked my favorite 5. And those 5 are the ordinary beginning, the call to action, the big hairy monsters, which I bet we're going to hear a few of today. And then 2 things that I think for entrepreneurs are really big things. And they are the allies, guides, mentors, coaches that have helped along the way, because you don't do it by yourself. I can't say that often enough. I just uploaded my 70th episode and I say it every single time. And finally, those folks who are maybe not so with you. Joseph Campbell calls it the journey home, I think in heavy irony, because once you have been out in the world and you've played with the big hairy monsters and you've overcome your trials and tribulations and you've had your triumphs and you've had your disappointments, you are different. And other folks aren't necessarily. They haven't gone through the same path. And so there's this little disconnect between you and the folks that you're running around with. And maybe there isn't. Maybe they're like, wow, so cool, you did that. Awesome, we're right behind you. And some of them are in the, what was that again? And how do you spell it? So, Melissa, what was your ordinary beginning?
Well, to be honest with you, there was nothing ordinary about my beginning.
And that happens too.
From the fact that I was born with a moderately severe hearing deficit and didn't get my first hearing aid until I was 18 years old. And then follow that with 17 years of physical, emotional, and sexual abuse.
Oh, my.
By 13, I was running a household. I cared for my 4 younger siblings who were between the ages of 1 and 10. Trust me, they did not want big sister acting like mom.
A little bit of a conflict there, yeah.
Ton of conflict, absolutely. So, I'm cooking, I'm cleaning, I'm doing the laundry, I'm the hairstylist, the therapist, the masseuse. I'm doing it all at 13. And then at 16, I also added having my own business. I was cleaning homes at that time. It got me out of the house. It got me away. It was nice. The problem is I'm already so stretched, so thin at such a young age. My honors courses grades are falling. I'm averaging 4 hours of sleep at night.
Oh,
I
wow.
don't even realize this, but I'm physically, emotionally, and spiritually exhausted.
Right.
This is when my first hero came in. I was 16, going on 17, and I finally answered my my counselor's request to talk to her. What's going on? And I shared with her everything that was going on. And she went to bat for me immediately. And she found out that I could leave home at 17 if I had another adult who would take responsibility for me. So I have an aunt who very kindly and opened her life, her home to me. That was Aunt Nancy, and I finished my junior year with her, and that gave me a time to start recuperating, getting my energy back and all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that was a pretty heavy burden.
It was I knew my life was dysfunctional. I knew there was nothing normal about it, but it's through my career that I actually realized the depth of just what all I was under. Yeah, it's interesting looking back at it now.
Right.
And what's interesting is from that point on, there was one shift after the other that kept taking me to the next place. So, my senior year, I move in with a different aunt. She gets me this is Aunt Lynn. She gets me my first pair of hearing aids and supported me in my dream to go to college. And in my senior year, I meet a new counselor, Mr. Williamson, and my English teacher, Mrs. Greer. And they both went to bat for me and got me into Baylor University. As I know, I was a kid that couldn't even imagine going to a school, let alone a private school. So it was just all these miracles that kept following one after the other. And I didn't just get into a private school. They made sure I had the scholarships and the financial aid to pay all the way through it. So I became the first person in my family to complete a 4-year degree.
Nice.
And I was guided. I had no intentions of being a counselor. That was not my plan. But I was guided to be. Yeah, it's amazing. So I'm guided to be this clinical social worker. I go to graduate school and I complete an internship and a fellowship in addiction with the VA and eventually secured a job. And so I've got this background that totally sets me up to work with this population that it wasn't what I was planning on doing. And it was just an amazing experience in terms of really going through my own healing process, because all through my personal life, I've always considered myself my first and my last client. So I'm always working on myself. I've tried so many different modalities, from therapy to nutrition to meditation, spirituality, all of it. And I bring all of this when I work with my clients. If it works for me, I give it a shot. If they're open to it, we try it. And so the clients I was working with they were all struggling with addiction. And interestingly enough, I kept attracting the ones that were also struggling with trauma. It makes sense now, but and you would think that the majority of the ones that I was working with were combat trauma, but that's actually not true. I did work with many combat, but I worked with even more who struggled from childhood physical, emotional, or sexual abuse.
Oh, so they came into the military already wounded.
Exactly. And that also increases. My experience is that if they came into the military with trauma, they were far more likely to develop combat trauma because they were already primed for it.
Right. The wound was already there. This just would rip it open.
We just ripped it open for them.
Oh.
Yeah. And the thing is when you hear sexual assault is another one that I worked with, and you would think I'm talking about women. I actually worked with far more men who were sexually assaulted in the VA. So many come in there and they're assaulted while they're in boot camp or early in their time in the career. So these guys are really confused, really upset. They're betrayed by the system. And they come to me, and the thing that I heard so often was, you're the first person I told. I've never told anybody. Because when you think about it, women, they have all the same issues that women have from being assaulted, plus they're a man. So they're not supposed to have this. It's not, they're supposed to be strong enough and tough enough. But sexual assault is rarely accidental. It's rarely spontaneous. It's usually planned ahead.
Right. It's a predator.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So this is not something they could have prevented. And that's one of the biggest struggles to have to work through on that.
Right. It's an extra dose of shame.
Exactly.
That's from society that says, oh, you're a guy, you can't be having this kind of an experience because you're a guy.
You're supposed to be protecting and guy and all that. And
and in the military.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, they came in to serve their country, do their duty, and the wrong people were around them and took advantage of that situation.
Yeah.
So you've got all those issues going on. It's no wonder that so many of them end up in addiction, of course, because they're trying to numb the wound that they don't even understand, that they just want to push away as hard as they can. And so this is what my professional training was. For 27 years, we're working with these folks and helping them to realize that this wasn't the end of their life. It was a stop point, but it's not the end of their life. They're not ruined. They're not damaged. Life isn't over for them. They still have a beautiful life ahead of them, but it is working through all of these ugly stories that are holding them back.
Right.
And that, of course, was extremely rewarding, working with all those years, seeing these guys turn around. One that got married, I thought he'd never get married. Another one who, when he came in, he was barely keeping his job as a busboy. But by the time we had finished working, he was now the assistant manager of the same place he was working. He had the relationship that he wanted with his adult children, and he got to hold his newborn grandson, which is what he was afraid he wasn't going to be able to do.
Aww.
Yeah, so you see these changes.
Yes.
And now you would think I'm making a big switch from therapy to coaching, but the fact of the matter is I've always had kind of a bridge between the two. I've never found straight therapy to be real effective. Sitting across from somebody and going, so how do you feel today? And staring at them. I've been on both sides of this. I know how awkward that is. You're sitting here going, so do I sound crazy? Do I make any sense? What are you thinking over there?
Right.
And so I always had more of a coaching approach. And it helped guys to see changes faster. Mm-hmm. And because they would see improvement, they were more likely to stay engaged. They were more likely to do the work, and they saw the changes that they wanted.
So they were able to take action.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Part of coaching is, okay, what do you want to do?
Exactly.
What do you think the result's going to be? Okay, let's try it. Mm-hmm. It's all about taking action. And that is one of from what I understand, one of the profound things that gets people out of depression.
Absolutely. And that's a really good point, because, you know, when I was in undergrad, when I left home, I had PTSD that was diagnosed. I also had episodic depression. And when I was in undergraduate school, I had this really severe depression that I fell into. And I mean, I lost down to 90 pounds. Everybody thought I was anorexic. And I'm like, I'm not anorexic. I want to eat, but when I try to eat, it makes me gag. Okay. I'm not hungry. Right. And finally, one day I was like, I can't just keep doing this. This sucks. And so I just wrote down everything that needed to be done. I didn't write clean the kitchen. I wrote wash the dishes, right. Put the dishes up,
right.
Sweep the floor. And if I could get one thing off of my list a day, I was successful. Somewhere along the way, it caught up. And I got the place cleaned up and I got back on track. And I started eating again and I started putting on the weight again. But it was the action. It was figuring out how to take that step and not stay stuck in that dark, black place that you don't even know where the hell it comes from, you know?
Right. Brain chemistry strikes again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And not eating plays into the brain chemistry, makes it worse, which then makes you not eat, which, yeah, it's just it's extremely vicious cycle.
And having people tell me you have to eat, I'm like, I know.
Yeah. Clear on the concept. So that you had some really good, big, nasty, hairy monsters to dance with, and you learned how to not only help, dance with your own in a more useful way, but also help others dance with theirs and deal with their big, hairy monsters. And you've mentioned some allies along the way, your counselors, your aunts who got you out of the home situation. Who were some of the other mentors along the way as you were becoming a coach and getting out into the world?
Let me tell you that story real quick, and it all kind of rolls together. So in October of 2020, I come into work. It's before 7:00 in the morning. And by 7:30 that morning, I'm in tears. I'm crying. And until then, I wasn't a big prayer because I always felt kind of contrived to me. I talked to God all the time, but sitting there praying didn't really feel natural. But that morning, the prayer came really clearly and the response came immediately. And I was like, okay, blown away. And the response was really, really clear. It's time to go. It's time to go. And that was a Wednesday. And by that Friday, I'd had my last day. It turned around that fast. I didn't have time to reconsider it. It was a definite, I'd put it off too long. It's time to go. So I took a deferred retirement, and the next week in my email, I received an email from Melinda Cohen and Kate Steinbacher about their program, Coaches Console. Now, this program pulled all of the administrative stuff that had been holding me back for years in terms of getting my program, my coaching practice going. It just put it all together. So I'm like, okay, no more excuses. You just solved that one for me. So I joined their program and was assigned a personal coach and started working out to start with it. I really wasn't sure what niche to work with. I decided to begin by working with who I know. I know veterans. I know veterans really well. And I love working with men, and I love working with veterans. That didn't work out so well. Yeah, they have other resources right now and weren't looking for me.
Right.
So it just wasn't something that they were. I'm still open to working with them, but until they're looking for me, we're not going to touch base. So then I came across Imam Agay's program, and he's another really brilliant business professional, and has a program of teaching you how to create your program out of the knowledge that you have and how to market that to people. And while I was at his program, I was encouraged to repurpose my skills to work with CEOs and entrepreneurs and high achievers. He explained that there are so many out there who are so out of balance.
Right.
They've got their stuff together at work, but all their time is at work. They're bringing it home in the evening. They're bringing it home on the weekend. They're suffering burnout and don't even know it. They're so stressed out, so overwhelmed, but they think it's just part of the job, that it's just the nature of what they're doing.
Right.
So they're losing their sense of purpose and fulfillment. They're missing their date night, their kids' activities. And they need someone like me who can come in and really understand, how do you turn that around? How do you manage the stress and have a life, and really a life that you love and it's fulfilling? And then the final thing that I learned, which was really surprising to me, and kind of surprising, kind of not surprising, because there's far more people out there who have suffered trauma than they realize. They've learned to push through. They've learned to cope. Problem is that if you don't heal it, it's there waiting to be healed.
Yes.
And at some point, in my experience has been, there's something about that middle age point, about 35 to 45, where they can't keep it pushed down anymore. It starts finding its way out. And so that became I'm like, oh, I get to use my trauma skills again.
Hey, they're always useful.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I said those are always useful.
Yes.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's been wonderful, going down this path. And don't get me wrong, I don't want to hear somebody suffering from trauma. I absolutely don't want to hear that. But if you are, then I'm thrilled to death to be able to help you walk down through that path and take you to that next level of leadership, because now you're going to work through those things that have been making you less productive, yes, intervening with your having the better relationships with your employees, your coworkers, and the different people, the personal people in your life. And what I'm seeing happening, especially after the last 2 years, people are really, really moving towards the importance of those relationships, the connections, yep, whether it's with a coworker or a boss or underling or your child or your mother. Without those connections, we're now really seeing how much we suffer. Mm-hmm. That simple good morning, how are you doing, can mean the world of difference to someone who is particularly an introvert like myself, who doesn't have a lot of interaction, and now they're working from home all the time.
Right.
All that stuff you have more time for all this stuff to come up.
Right. And it does.
It does, absolutely. It's good that you can't be distracted from it anymore, because you need to let it come up so it can heal and move on. But it's hard as hell if you don't know what's going on and you don't understand why all of a sudden you feel so shitty,
Right.
And you don't know who to go talk to. Who do you talk to? And so many people don't want to go to therapy. And I totally get that, because they don't want the stigma and they don't want it on their record and they don't want any of that. I totally get that. But trying to do it by yourself is the hardest damn thing you're ever going to do.
Yes.
And trying to work with somebody who doesn't understand the trauma is almost like not having the right, it's almost like not having support. You have support, but it's not the same as someone who really understands it and can anticipate and kind of talk you through this. Okay, great. You've had a great day, but anticipate this could happen.
Right.
And if it does, how are we going to deal with it? You start supporting them and helping them, and it's looking at the whole big picture. It's not just therapy. It's the nutrition. It's the self-care. It's the self-love. It's the, if you have a spiritual path, it's incorporating that. And the more complete and whole that you're looking at the you after all of this, you won't recognize.
Right.
It'll be just a whole beautiful story you never even imagined existed.
You literally cannot imagine it from where you are. It is impossible to think about, to understand, to contemplate, to visualize. You just don't know. And
right.
The way that I put it is, caterpillars go through this process, right? They're stumping along on multiple feet and they're, eating leaves and green stuff and plants and all of this. And they're basically little eating machines with lots of legs. The idea that they could become creatures of flight and beauty and sipping nectar and all of that is mind-blowing.
Absolutely.
And the process in the middle, I call it, getting into the green goo.
Mm-hmm.
The caterpillars kind of do it without really knowing what they're getting into, but they basically break down, they disintegrate into nearly 100% goo.
Yeah, good day. You literally come apart.
Yes.
And then, yes, to something so much more beautiful, so much stronger, so much more you that you didn't even know existed.
Right. I love it when people try to explain to kids that this thing crawling on the ground is the same thing as that butterfly there. And the kids are like, nope, no way, doesn't happen. Sorry. And that's exactly what's going on.
And they're right at the same time, because they're in two different places.
Yes. Yes.
One before the transformation, one after the transformation.
Yes.
Yeah, it's even since I started that day and I said, okay, I'm leaving my job, I've been going through my next transformation. I'm in the process of it now. And there's this loss, and then there's that loss, and then there's that loss, and now there's this loss. And it's like, okay, I've been through this a few times, but when does this stop? And so even after you've been through it and you're going through it for the next level, it still feels so new and so different. And there are times when your buttons are going, oh my God, how am I going to deal with this? Even though you know how to deal with it now.
Right. One of the, what I considered my saving grace through the pandemic is when I would hit those bottom of the wells. It's like, oh God, here we are again. All right, I know I'm going to get through it. This really sucks. I wonder how long it's going to take this time. All right, let's go. Are we out yet? No, we're not out yet. Okay. But I know there's going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. I know that that's going to happen because I've been through these transformational processes before. And I've learned to, even in the darkest moment where I feel the worst, and, jumping off bridges sounds like a good idea. I go, yeah, okay. Yeah. Thought of that before. Didn't happen. It got better. We'll just wait this out. It's good. It's going to be over. And it is. And it does.
And see, and what's beautiful is you've been through it, so you know what to anticipate.
Yes.
That first time you go through it, though,
Oh, that's horrible.
holy shit, nothing feels normal. You wonder if the tears will ever stop. You know, yeah, it feels like everything is falling apart so that it can come back together, but you don't know that when it's falling apart.
Right. Yes. And when it does come back together, then your relationships blossom, your work blossoms, everything gets so much better on the outside. And sometimes there's a little bit of upheaval because you come out, you're stronger, you're different.
Yes.
Right? And people go, well, I don't like you anymore because we're not doing the thing that I used to be able to support. And you can go, bye. Yeah, you're right. Deal or go.
And that's happened with every single one. It's like this flip. I have this group of people, and then they just kind of end up going a different way, and this new group of people come in. Exactly. And it's happened each time. If they're not growing with me, they keep going where they're going. And this other group comes in now because now I'm in vibrational alignment with them where I wasn't before. And it's just fascinating to watch how that moves. The hard part, though, is when it's family. Because family is still there, even though they may not know what the hell's going on with you, where you're going. I can't tell you how many times I've been told, Melissa, you really need to be careful about what you're reading. I'm not sure you got real clear information. And I'm like, no, I'm sure I got it. I've read it. I've seen it. And so you're making these adjustments of how do you not destroy your relationships and still allow yourself to do what you were meant to do. Because this growth process is set up so that you're prepared to do the mission, the purpose, whatever it is that you're here to do. And family and friends don't understand that if they're not on the same path. And yeah, and I can't tell you.
Calls the journey home. That's exactly it. They're
and it can feel so lonely at times. It's like, you know, and you can't explain it to them. There's no way to put it into words. No. And if you even try to touch on the edge, they just look at you like, are you nuts? Did you just fall off the loop? You know, what happened to you? You used to be so smart. Yes.
Fill in the blank. Yes, my particular, the comment that I got was, gosh, you used to be so quiet. Yeah, I don't do that anymore.
Heaven forbid you have something to say now.
Right. So speaking of having your say, I understand, Melissa, that you have a gift for our audience.
I do. I have a free report called The Extraordinary Leader, and basically it's walking through my program. So you get to see all the steps that go into making this transformation. You can do it by yourself, but most people find it kind of challenging, but at least gives you an idea of a place to start. And then if you'd like, you know, I'd love to work with you.
Wonderful. So we're going to have the links down here for that. And it will also be in the afterword, and it will be in the show notes. So you can find it in lots of places and pick up that report so you know what the process of transformation can and might be for you, and get that next step, become that butterfly. And you know, it's such an overused metaphor, but what else do you say? What else do you use? It is exactly what happens.
Absolutely. Everything you are now is just the tip of the iceberg of what you can be.
Yes, absolutely. Well, thank you, Melissa, for being on the show. You have absolutely provided an enormous amount of helpful information, of inspiration, and just great mojo.
Well, thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me. Thank you again.
All right. And thank you to my audience on the sweet sound of success. What are your dreams for your business? You know what drives me crazy? Really smart business owners denying their talents because they've been taught it has to be hard, because they've been taught that they don't deserve their gifts, that they're not worth anything. They've been taught that their gender means they can't express their genius. I'm Sue Wilhite, and I want you to have access to your genius. I want you to go out and rock the world with your genius. So I created the Call to Action Coaching Program. It's all about getting to the heart of you and what you've got to share with the world to make a profitable business that thrives and allows you to make a difference in the world. Click the link to sign up for the Call to Action Coaching Program today. Don't let your genius go unnoticed.